Welcome to Watercolor by Scarlett Damen. Today is quite the day. I seem to have absolutely no time to do anything for myself. The animals are making noise, my husband's trying to take a shower and do the dishes. It's insane. So I finally have a few minutes where he has gone outside to let out the chickens for me, chickens and ducks, so they can free range all over the property. And that means that I might have 13 minutes to do a voiceover on this video. I don't know about the chickens. They might start quacking and squawking, and my little rabbit is chewing away on her hay over here. So please excuse all the additional noises. So today I am doing a brush drawing. This is a technique that I want to talk about. This is a very important and useful technique. It's something that's different from using a pencil. When you use a pencil, you have the ability to erase. You also have a smaller line. You have more control. You have a say over what's going on. When you use a brush, it's completely different. You have less control. You have less of a say. The line might be fatter than you want. It might drop wherever it feels like dropping if the brush happens to drop a spot or something. It's a totally different feeling to draw with a brush. This is also an excellent way to loosen up. So if you find that your work is really tight, or you literally tight, like you get to the point where your shoulders become tight while you're working, or your arms become tight while you're working. When I was a teenager, that was one of my problems. When I would do really tight work, I would find that I actually had to stop and breathe and relax my shoulders because they would slowly creep up and get really tight, and of course that's not good. And also, you can get like muscle strain and things like that. So if you find that you're doing too much tight work and you want to do something loose, but you don't necessarily just want to throw it on the paint and do a full-blown loose flowing painting, you still want to do something that has some kind of structure to it, where essentially you're painting in the style you would originally paint in. Drawing with the brush is an excellent way to do that, to work through these things, to practice and to loosen up. Now, this is something that artists over time have been doing for a very long time, right? All the way back to the beginning. We didn't always have pencils, but creating a brush or a quill and using some form of ink or paint to draw was a traditional way of sketching out your work onto your painting, way before we got into erasers and pencils. Right now I'm using a mixture of Payne's Gray and Davies Gray, and there's probably a little bit of natural tint mixed into it. These are Schminky paints, but they're watercolor. And you can obviously see, or can you see, that these are transparent. These are transparent paints. So if you wanted to do something like this with an opaque paint like gouache or oil or acrylic, that would be much more complicated because you won't be able to see through it. So the whole point of drawing with a brush is that we're just loosely putting down the outside shape and then starting to loosely put everything else inside. So the same way you would please excuse my chickens. They are miniature cerama chickens, the smallest birds in the world, this particular breed. Okay, so opaque paints are not suitable for brush drawings because the marks and lines must be fluid. You want the paint to be able to flow and move. And we're doing all of this in a very light shade so that later when we come back with our actual painting and put it on top, this is really our guide. It's the pencil drawing that we would put underneath our painting. It can also become your underpainting, and that's what I've turned this one into. So you can see I'm way past drawing the outlines and sketching in the details. I'm more at the point where I'm putting in a lot of detail. This is like the underpainting. So opaque paints will not work because you can't see through them. In this form, of course, you could try. By all means, go have fun and try. You can do anything. There are no rules, right? Really. But in the traditional brush drawing sense, which is its own technique, opaque paints are frowned upon. You could, however, use ordinary watercolors or inks. You can use acrylics if you thin them with water. And of course you'd want good brushes. So speaking of brushes, I painted this painting, this little sketch, using 2 brushes. The first one was a size 4 Da Vinci Series 418. This is a mop brush. It's the one with the brown handle. And this brush is wonderful for doing something like an underpainting because it comes to a beautiful point, but it holds a ton of water and a ton of paint, obviously. It's very, very poofy, and it thickens up really well in the middle. Poofs out. But because it's on has a beautiful point, if you raise it and hold it almost perfectly straight, you can get a really good, thin, wonderful line. If you put it down a little bit, the line becomes thicker. So for example, where I'm painting right now on the right side of the face, I can get more of that shadowy look just by pushing the brush just an ever so tiny bit to get a thicker line. But then, like in the body of the painting, if I want a much thicker line, if I want to fill in the page or do more of a footprint mark, all I have to do is push the brush almost all the way down to the bottom so that I have the full footprint of my paintbrush. So in this way, I'm able to do lots of details, fill work, and then full-blown body painting and really filling in the base colors with one brush. Now, this little guy, this is a turkey in case you're not sure. This is a turkey, and it's actually my pet turkey. His name is Tom Tom, and at the very end of this tutorial I will include a little picture of the reference photo and of Tom Tom. So because it's a turkey, he's got lots of little hairs, all these beautiful little hairs on his head, and very detailed, very interesting. Just, I love it. Tom Tom, I raised him from a tiny little bird, and I think he's absolutely beautiful. So because of this, because of all these tiny details, I switched over to the second brush, the one I'm using now, and this is a 1010 Da Vinci Maestro, and it's from the series number 10. You could also do it, I also often use my series number 35. But you could use any brush you want, and I could do all of this with the larger brush. It's just that the larger brush, for such tiny details, there's more of a chance that I could accidentally go too low or bring my brush too close to the page and make a larger line, and then I'm stuck having to clean it up. Or, you know, this whole point, brush drawing, the whole point of brush drawing is that I would adapt. So the moment I have an issue, the moment I have a mistake or a line that I don't like, I simply have to adapt the entire drawing to include that line. If that means maybe the painting gets a little bigger, or the background has something else, or I do a solid tone in the background to cover things up, it is entirely up to you. But the fantastic thing about this type of technique is that it pushes you to not erase, to not look at your work as absolute perfection, where your piece has to be perfect. You have all that time and energy going into the drawing. You then have to transfer your drawing onto your painting, and again take a ton of time to transfer and get it all right and figure it out, and then start painting it in. And when you paint it in that sense, it tends to be, not always, but it can fall into a more of a paint by number category, where you're blocking in certain colors and you've just drawn it out. So here's this shape, and here's this shape, and here's this shape. And I do see a lot of artists that do this, and they tend not to combine their colors. So their shapes, their paintings don't flow. They're more like puzzle pieces, and they can be absolutely beautiful. No debate there, they're absolutely beautiful. But if you want to work on developing your drawing skill with your brush in a way that the whole piece has to flow, you're not able to block in one piece or the one part or the next part, because you're drawing it with a brush with one color, or maybe 2 or 3, and this is all the base. What am I trying to say? This is all the underpainting. So as you're blocking that in, as you're drawing it, you're all over the place. There's no point where you can just sketch it and then come in and draw it. You know, you really have to perfect those skills, perfect that the control over the brush. If it's a big one or a little one, it really doesn't matter. Of course, if you're also doing something huge, you could do a landscape, you could do all kinds of things. This does not have to be something detailed or complicated or tiny. In this case, it's very small. This whole piece is 6 by 4, I think. It's just a little it's a little sketch I did in the evening, so I tend to do them small when I'm working on little things, when I'm working on fast, simple things, because that way I don't have to spend so much time doing something huge, I can do multiple little ones. And I find that that is a better way to practice my skill. I'm not spending so much time doing large washes because there's less space on my paper to be concerned about large washes. So I can fill my page with more little things and then go on to another one. So I've sped it up here. We've only got a few minutes left, and I sped it up a little bit. I'm just putting some of the final shadows in. The eyes are already pretty dark, and I want to lift that beak and pull the beak away from the body by putting in that line. And now I want you to take the time to draw in some of those fine little hairs that I was talking about. He's got lots of, they're pretty coarse, but they're very fine, short, fine little hairs, and onto his wattle. I believe it's called the wattle, the part on the top of the nose. I have to look that up. There's definitely a wattle on the rest of it. Now this turkey has a very red head, and it's lots of little bumps and tiny fine hairs and very, very black eyes. And he's a very friendly turkey. I know in this picture he doesn't look very friendly. He looks a little angry, maybe, at least to me. I think he looks a little angry. So I'm going to have to paint him again. I'm going to have to maybe find a different sample, take some more pictures and use a different reference photo and see if I can try to draw Tom Tom in a way that he looks chipper and excited, because this is the first time I've ever drawn my turkey. It's also the first time I've ever drawn a turkey just using the brush, and I really enjoyed it. I recommend you guys having a go and trying it out. I will put a class assignment onto my school, my online school, that will tell you, what the class assignment is, what materials I'm using, and of course, if you'd like to follow along and work with us, I would love to see your work. If you'd like to post that in the community section, so that we can all, share and talk and all that good fun stuff. I hope you enjoyed this, and I do apologize for my constant crowing of my little chickens. I actually did a little video. I'm not sure if it's live yet, but that will also be, it's coming to the school on one of my chickens. So if you guys are interested in also seeing what my chickens look like, there's a teeny tiny little drawing that I just did, and I did another one last night, so I might turn that into a blog post as well, because they're really adorable. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is the picture of Tom Tom, and I hope to see you if you want to come join me over at my school. Have a wonderful day. I'm Scarlett. Toodaloo.